All right. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Bonjour tout le monde. Alors, merci à tous nos exceptionnels candidats libéraux qui se joignent à moi aujourd'hui. But above all, it is great to be here in Whitby at Durham College. Durham College, a place that represents the future of our nation. And I am here to talk about the future. The students at Durham are exactly who we need to build the modern, tech-enabled, forward-looking, caring country that Canadians deserve. A resilient nation that can withstand any economic threat. To build Canada strong. You know, three months ago, almost exactly to the day, 3 months ago, I was at an outdoor rink in Edmonton where I had grown up learning to play hockey. And I was putting my hand up to run for the leadership of the Liberal Party to try to become your Prime Minister. And at that time, I had that goal in mind, to build Canada strong. It was true that day at that rink in Edmonton. It was true when I took office, oath of office at Rideau Hall 2 months ago, or a month ago. I wish it feels like 2 months ago, to become your Prime Minister. And it will remain true. It will remain true. Building Canada strong will remain true every day if Canadians choose me and this team in this election. Yeah. That goal, that focus, that unrelenting focus on building our country has only become more urgent because we are facing the biggest crisis of our lifetimes. Just 4 days after I launched my candidacy in Edmonton, Donald Trump assumed the presidency of the United States. And ever since, it's true, go for you. I'm not going to hold you back. Ever since, he's been attacking us, America's closest ally, its closest partner, Canada. Des tarifs de 25% à travers notre économie, des tarifs sur l'acier et l'aluminium, sur notre industrie automobile, bien ici, à Whitby, potentiellement sur le bois d'œuvre. Il menace les entreprises canadiennes. Il menace les travailleurs canadiens. Il menace les placements de nos retraités. President Trump is trying to fundamentally restructure the international trading system. And in the process, he is rupturing the global economy. There's been an 80-year period when the United States has embraced the mantle of global economic leadership, when it has forged alliances rooted in trust and mutual respect, when it's championed free and open exchange of goods and services. That era is over. That is a tragedy. But we have to recognize that it's also our new reality. And so the key question in this election is who is the best place to respond to that? Who will stand up to President Trump? Who will stand up for you? Who will stand up for Canadians? Part of standing up is to have the plan to manage through the chaos to a better future for all Canadians. Now, I've managed crises virtually my entire career. I helped Canada navigate through the 2008 global financial crisis. I guided the UK through the turmoil of Brexit. I know what it takes to not merely survive a crisis, but to emerge stronger than before. I know what it means to be entrusted with making the decisions that will affect the lives and livelihoods of millions of people. I know how to manage the chaos created by President Trump. I know how we in Canada can win this trade war, how we can build the strongest economy in the G7. And that starts with knowing that when you are in a crisis, you have to prepare for the worst. You can't hope for the best. Unfortunately, Pierre Poilievre has chosen a different approach. When President Trump was openly musing, threatening about annexing Canada, about making our great nation the 51st state, Pierre Poilievre's first reaction was not to defend our sovereignty. No, he said, Canada is stupid. Over time, when the severity of President Trump's threats became obvious to virtually everyone, his message to the president has been that he should just knock it off. Just knock it off. As if it were so simple. La guerre commerciale de Président Trump et ses attaques envers notre souveraineté ne sont pas de simples inconvénients. Dès le tout premier jour, dans une arène d'Edmonton, je le savais. J'ai reconnu cette menace pour ce qu'elle était. Le début d'une crise qui, dans nos vies, est sans précédent. In this crisis, we have to prepare for America's threats to our very sovereignty. They want our land, our resources, they want our water, they want our country. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. And you're right, that will never happen. Canada is not America, and it never will be. But we need to do more than just recognize that. We need a plan to deal with this new reality. Because when you're in a crisis, plan beats no plan. A plan provides direction in the fog of uncertainty. It provides purpose. It rallies the team. It drives action. And to succeed in a crisis, you have to act with overwhelming force. We need to overcome the natural anxieties that people feel. We need to break through the uncertainty which is freezing our businesses. We need to replace, more than replace, what the crisis is taking away from us. Look, it's said there are no atheists in foxholes. There should be no libertarians in crises. As in a crisis, and this is what happens in a crisis, the private sector retreats. And government needs to step up. Government must lead and catalyze private investment. I know from traveling across our great country that Canadians are ready to step up. Canadians don't just want to resist the U.S. Canadians are determined to win. And so our task as a nation, thank you, I'm here. Our task as a nation over the coming weeks, months, and years is to think big and to act bigger. Because we're not helpless in this. We're not just passive observers of a rapidly changing world, and we certainly aren't the United States. We're Canada. We are a free, sovereign, ambitious nation. are a country, we're a country with the capacity to lead the world. We have agency, we have power, we're masters in our own home, nous sommes maîtres chez nous. Nous pouvons contrôler de notre destin économique. Nous pouvons nous donner des choses que personne ne pourrait nous enlever, y compris les États-Unis. Nous pouvons répondre à cette crise en bâtissant un Canada plus fort. Et pour ça, il nous faut un plan. Now, today, I'm proud to launch Canada Strong. Our plan to unite, to secure, to protect and build Canada. And this comprehensive plan is defined by 4 principles. And the first is to unite. Because in a time of crisis, in a time when President Trump is attacking our economy, he's trying to weaken us, there is nothing more important than unity. Pour que le Canada soit fort, le Canada doit être uni. Il nous faut une économie canadienne, pas 13. C'est ça. D'ailleurs, dans ma première semaine comme Premier ministre, j'ai commencé le travail et obtenu l'accord de toutes les provinces et territoires pour faire tomber les obstacles au commerce à l'intérieur du Canada et créer une véritable libre-échange à travers notre pays d'ici la fête du Canada. Il faut Free Trade by Canada Day. Il faut bâtir des projets de société et les bâtir plus rapidement que jamais auparavant. Il faut se battre pour ce qui nous rassemble, comme Radio-Canada, CBC. Being united means standing up for what brings us together, like CBC, Radio-Canada. And it means making it easier to buy Canadian and discovering everything that our great country has to offer. This is unity. Our second principle is secure. Because in a more dangerous and divided world, it's essential to secure our borders, to secure our sovereignty, and to secure our country. Notre priorité face à ces tarifs américains injustes, injustifiés et mal avisés est de répliquer avec force et détermination. Répliquer avec des contre-tarifs qui auront un impact maximal aux États-Unis et minimal ici au Canada. Nous allons utiliser toutes les sommes tirées de ces tarifs pour protéger ceux qui ont été visés par le président Trump, nos industries automobiles et forestières, nos aciéries, nos alumineries, et investir pour donner à ces industries un avenir prospère, un avenir qui ne dépend plus des États-Unis. Securing our economy against the threat of tariffs is only the most immediate priority. To secure our nation over the long term, we have to do much more. We need to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces. So we will boost our Made in Canada defense industry, including by joining Rearm Europe, to invest in transatlantic security with like-minded European partners. We will increase care for our veterans, the women and men who put their lives on the line to defend our values. Yeah. We will invest in our north because Canada is a proud Arctic nation, but one that faces new threats. And we'll build safe communities, not just by denouncing the alarming rise in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, but by making it illegal to willfully obstruct places of worship, schools, and community centers. We will treat sexual and intimate partner violence as the urgent crisis that it is by making murder motivated by hate, including femicide, a constructive first-degree offense. We will stop the flow of illegal American guns because you can't be tough on crime if you're not tough on guns. Il faut protéger ceux qui mettent de la nourriture sur nos tables à tous, nos producteurs agricoles. Il faut protéger la gestion de l'offre. Ouais, exactement. We will assert ourselves, Canada will assert ourselves as a world leader, uniting like-minded countries who share our values of international cooperation and the free and open exchange of goods and services and ideas. We will step into the void left by the United States because if the United States doesn't want to lead, Canada will. Our third principle is to protect. We all know Canada is not American. We never will be. We are our own country. We have our own unique identity, history, culture, and way of life. And our government will always stand up for what makes Canada, Canada. That starts with protecting health care. Yeah. You know, in America, health care is a big business. In Canada, it is a right. And we will protect that right while modernizing the system, recruiting more doctors and nurses, and expanding coverage. You know what? Another part of our identity in Canada is nature. Nature is in our nature, and we will protect that too. Le Canada est un pays où on respecte et on célèbre nos langues officielles et les langues autochtones. Un pays qui porte la langue française au cœur de son identité, qui l'a fait rayonner et qui est toujours prêt à la défendre. Oui. You know, it's troubling that in America and elsewhere around the world, fundamental rights and freedoms are being rolled back. We will never go down that path here. We will protect a woman's right to choose what she does with her own body. Abortion is a right. There can be no debate about abortion rights in Canada, non-negotiable. Now, we will protect the freedom and equality that every Canadian is guaranteed, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender. You know, This came up, these sort of fundamental freedoms came up in the debate. We'll protect our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I said in the debate that that charter exists to protect Canadians from politicians. I'm a politician. It protects from politicians who may use their powers to override fundamental rights. We can't go down that slippery slope. Your fundamental rights and liberties shouldn't be subject to the whims of the government of the day. They should be eternal in Canada. We will also protect the progress we've made on reconciliation, but forge ahead and work to build stronger, healthier Indigenous communities across this country. Now, the fourth principle of our plan is build. We used to build things in this country. It's time to build again, big time. It's time to build a Canada you can afford, with the middle class tax cut and the elimination, which we've already done, of the divisive consumer carbon tax. I mean, here at Durham, surrounded by young people, we know that it's time to build housing. It's time to build twice as many homes every year. And we will do it in a way that builds an entirely new housing industry, an entirely new industry, with the most ambitious plan in Canada since the Second World War. On va bâtir un système d'immigration en lequel tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes peuvent avoir confiance. Bâtir des centaines de milliers de bonnes carrières dans les métiers spécialisés. This is a great time to go into the trades. We are going to build hundreds of thousands, not of jobs, but of careers in the specialized trades. On va bâtir un Canada qui est une superpuissance des énergies conventionnelles et des énergies vertes. Bâtir une stratégie industrielle qui nous permette d'être compétitifs tout en combattant les changements climatiques. Ouais. You know, it's time to build new trade and energy corridors, working in partnership with the provinces, and territories, and Indigenous peoples. Yes. And that's what we agreed. That's what we agreed to do in my first week as Prime Minister with all the First Ministers. It's time to build a future-focused, tech-enabled, clean economy that will be the strongest in the G7. It's time to build an economy that works for everyone. It is time to build Canada strong. Canada Fort est un plan avec lequel on va se tenir debout pour le Canada et face au président Trump. Un plan qui va rassembler les Canadiens et Canadiennes au lieu de les diviser. Un plan qui va non seulement créer des bons emplois, mais de bonnes carrières. Un plan qui va nous permettre de surmonter cette crise et d'en ressortir plus fort. C'est un plan qui propose une toute nouvelle approche en matière de fiscalité. Une approche qui nous permettra de dépenser moins pour que les Canadiens et Canadiennes puissent investir plus. C'est important, ça. Une approche qui entraînera une discipline fiscale et qui sera entièrement concentré sur la croissance économique, la création de bons emplois et la création de richesses pour l'ensemble du Canada. Our plan. Our plan gets government spending under control because the government has been spending too much and Canada has been investing too little. Let me draw that out. Day-to-day government spending, the government's operating budget, has been growing by 9% every year for years. That's more than twice the rate of growth of our economy. We're going to bring that level of spending growth down from 9% to 2%. And we will do it in a way. We will not cut any transfers to provinces, to territories, or individuals. We will protect all of those. But we will balance our operating budget over the next 3 years by cutting waste, by eliminating duplication, and by deploying technology. You know, but it's not enough just to do that. Because in the biggest crisis in our lifetimes, I know that when you're in a crisis, you have to act with purpose and with force. Your government needs to step in. In the Bank of Canada's worst-case economic scenario on the Trump trade war, which was released a couple days ago, they estimate that a long-lasting global trade war causes $125 billion in damage to the Canadian economy. That is an enormous number. But it's small compared to what we can give ourselves back. That's why what we're going to do is to invest more to build things, to make capital investments that will create a massive return for all Canadians. Two-thirds of all new spending in our plan will go to capital investments that catalyze the building of affordable homes, that provide equipment for our Canadian Armed Forces to secure this country, that build clean and conventional energy, that create nation-building infrastructure like ports, new roads, railways that connect us with reliable trading partners. And crucially, most of the remaining spending is on our middle-class tax cut. So we're cutting taxes today for affordability, and we're investing in our future. These are smart investments. And we're designing our investments so that they will catalyze $4 to $5 more in investment from the private sector for every dollar that the government puts in. So, as an example, by investing $1.5 billion to cut development charges and red tape for new homes, to cut those charges in half, we'll drive over $8 billion in private housing investment, more than 5 times what we're spending. In total, our plan over the next 5 years will create $500 billion in economic value for Canadians. And that is on top of the $200 billion in total investment that our existing investment tax credits in clean energy, clean hydrogen, clean technology, electric vehicle manufacturing, and carbon capture will create on their own. And that is before the additional $200 billion that we can give ourselves as Canadians if we complete this job of building one Canadian economy instead of 13. So, this is what it means to be Canada strong. This is what it means to be Canada strong. What President Trump threatens us is to take away $125 billion. What we can create is $900 billion by ourselves. That is That is $20,000 on net for every single Canadian in 5 years. And that's what it means when we say we can do more for ourselves than any foreign government can ever take away. That's what it means. That's what it means. That's what it means to have a government that spends less so that Canadians can invest more. That's what it means. That's what it means. To act with the urgency that this crisis requires. To match the scale of the crisis with the scale of ambition in this great country. Voici le genre d'action ambitieuse dont nous avons besoin pour non seulement braver cette tempête, mais en ressortir plus fort qu'avant. Pour tirer profit de plus faible ratio dette PIB du G7, pour bâtir l'économie avec la plus rapide croissance du G7. Et ça, c'est sans compter la croissance économique majeure qui sera entraînée par notre plan pour bâtir une économie forte. You know, this plan meets the moment with overwhelming force. And while we're putting forth the most ambitious economic plan in decades to do more than just get our economy back on track, but to build the strongest economy in the G7, Pierre Poilievre's mind is focused elsewhere. His priority for Canadians is to bring back plastic straws. Plastic straws. Thank God. That'll show Trump. That'll show the Americans. We got our straws, yeah. At least that's his priority when he's not proposing to burn everything down, everything that matters to Canadian under the pretense of getting our house in order. To cut our public services that support Canadians. To get rid of the Canadian child benefit and $10 a day childcare. $10 a day childcare that saves a family here in Whitby $10,000 a year. Get rid of it. Get rid of it to pay a tax cut. So that's not our plan. He wants to get rid of dental care that is now available to more than 8 million Canadians. Dental care that saves the average person $870 per trip. He wants to get rid of pharmacare that will provide free contraceptives and diabetes medication to Canadians. He wants to end our international partnerships, cutting aid to those most in need, including to Ukraine and in the Middle East. He wants to close our most important, our most prized cultural institutions, like CBC, Radio-Canada. This at a time in the face of President Trump's threats against our sovereignty. That's not leadership. That's ideology. And it's the last thing we need at this pivotal time. You know, throughout our history, there have been big moments where Canada and Canadians have chosen to step up, to assert ourselves as a free, sovereign, and ambitious nation. Et maintenant, nous sommes à un moment charnière. Il nous faut réinventer notre économie. Il nous faut accomplir des choses qui, auparavant, auraient semblé impossibles, à un rythme sans précédent. Nous devons assurer la réussite du Canada dans un monde qui a été profondément transformé. Les défis qui nous attendent sont intimidants, et c'est normal. Les grands changements, comme ceux que nous visons, sont toujours déconcernants. Je ne veux pas vous vendre de rêves. Nous avons beaucoup de chemin à faire. Mais j'ai confiance. J'ai confiance en vous. I have every confidence in Canadians because I understand what President Trump does not. Canada is not just geography, It's not just resources. It's not just a wealthy, vast country stretching from east to west and to the far north. Canada is our history. It's Vimy Ridge, it's Juno Beach, it's Gander, it's peacekeeping. Canada is deeply held values. It's universal public health care. It's an unwavering belief in human rights and in the rights of First Nations, of Inuit and the Métis. Canada is both French and English people living together and much more. It's a free and diverse community. It's an innovative, pioneering, kind and caring society. It's more than a nation. We're a confederation, a sacred set of ideals built on practical foundations. It's uniquely Canadian, ideals and pragmatism. We know we're not perfect, but we always strive to be good. Yeah. We don't do things because they're easy, but because they are right. We believe as a country in action, not anger, in solutions, not slogans, and in determination, not division. Yeah. Our strength as a country lies in our resolve to work together instead of leaving everyone to fend for themselves. Our plan, Canada Strong, has been built on these foundations. Nous allons unir notre pays autour de notre identité, notre histoire et nos valeurs distinctes. Nous allons renforcer notre économie, notre souveraineté, notre place de leader dans un monde nouveau. Nous allons protéger nos travailleurs, nos entreprises, notre façon d'être. Nous allons bâtir un Canada où tous peuvent réussir, où tous peuvent subvenir à leurs besoins. Canada is the best country in the world, but can be even better. With our plan, we will build Canada strong, Canada free, Canada forever independent of the United States, Canada worthy of its people. Thank you very much. Merci.
Prime Minister. Okay. We'll now begin the question period. We'll take questions from the delegation before local media. Une quinzaine de minutes de questions de la délégation, ensuite les médias locaux. Karina.
Good morning. Karina Roman, CBC News. In your platform, your COSA platform you released today, you outline almost $130 billion in new spending, but a shrinking deficit over the next 4 years. How and why should Canadians believe your numbers add up?
Well, first off, thanks for the question. The numbers do add up very much. And I'd make a couple of distinctions here. What we're doing is we're taking government spending, which has been growing too fast. It's been growing at 9%, the operating spending, and we're focusing in on that, reducing duplication, finding efficiencies on through the delivery of various programs, using technology, capping the federal public service, which has grown by 40% over the last 10 years. So a series of measures that are going to make government more effective, reduce the cost of that spending, reduce the rate of growth of that spending. And then the second thing that we're doing, very importantly, so that's spending less. And the second thing that we're doing is we're not spending that amount of money, we're investing that amount of money. So we're using very limited government resources to catalyze enormous private sector investment. And that's what drives this economy forward. That's what meets this moment.
So that actually is a great segue, because you also talk about reducing government spending through a comprehensive program review.
Yeah.
You cost that out at about $28 billion in savings. Governments and parties often talk about reducing government spending and finding savings, and they come up with a number that seems sort of drawn out of the sky. And I guess the question is, what makes this different than all those other times?
So if you look at, let's again, I want to be absolutely clear, and you know this, but maybe not everyone watching, just to make everyone clear. We are protecting transfers to provinces, so transfers for healthcare, for education, et cetera. We're protecting every transfer to individuals, so-called transfers to individuals. So that would mean for childcare, for dental care, for others. All of that is in place. Then we look in at what government has been spending on itself. Its cost for technology, its cost for procurement, its cost for personnel, and the way it delivers programs. And that has grown very dramatically over the course of the last 10 years. It hasn't been managed. It can be managed. And the savings that we're making on it, we actually think that we're going to get much more significant savings on our actions over the course of time. But it's a question of management and focus. And one of the things that I bring is an experience in managing and focus on budgets, and that's what we're going to drive through to get those savings. Again, if I can just emphasize one other thing, and then I'll hand to you, Lawrence. We are in a crisis. We're in an enormous crisis. So we have to be able to do two things. One, pull down on that wasteful spending, which we will do. But much more than that, we need to be bold and drive investment in the economy and take the amazing opportunities we have as a country. Everything from building homes for our young people through to building new trade partnerships around the world based on our incredible people, talents, and resources. And we're going to do both. And that is how you meet the moment. That is how you meet a crisis. And that's what we can do. We can give ourselves far more. That $20,000 per Canadian over the next 5 years is absolutely achievable if we are bold, and that's what we will be.
Prochaine question.
Yeah. Yes.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur Carney, Laurence Martin de Radio-Canada. Je comprends que vous faites la différence entre le budget opérationnel et le budget en capital, mais selon votre plateforme aujourd'hui, le Canada serait encore plus de 60 milliards de dollars dans le rouge, en déficit. Est-ce que vous êtes aussi dépensier que M. Trudeau?
Non. Non, il y a un grand changement. Il y a un grand changement en ce qui concerne la nature des... on utilise le mot dépenses, mais ce n'est pas des dépenses parce que la plupart des dépenses dans notre plateforme, c'est pour des investissements. Ce n'est pas des dépenses opérationnelles. Ils sont des dépenses qui vont créer des actifs surtout au secteur privé. Mais il y a des dépenses qui vont créer la croissance. Mais dans notre plateforme, c'est une plateforme chiffrée, c'est une plateforme très prudente parce qu'on ne ajoute pas pour l'accroissement de taux de croissance en conséquence des grands investissements. Et je sais, comme économiste, si on a d'investissement de 500 milliards de dollars, le taux de croissance ici au Canada va augmenter, mais ce n'est pas dans nos chiffres. À vous. Briefly in English, the difference, big difference, what we're quote spending is, and I'm using that word, is investment spend. So if you look at the overall mild deficit in a few years out, it's all for investment. It is all investment that catalyzes private investment. And then a big element of the prudence that's in this, and that certainly hasn't been the case, that hasn't been the case for governments in Canada for decades, to be absolutely clear. It's not just the past government, but for decades. What we're not doing, last point, is to give ourselves any credit for that in our numbers. These are very prudent numbers. So if we're causing $500 billion of investment, which is an enormous number over the next 5 years, growth is going to be even higher. But we're not giving ourselves credit for that because that's the prudent way to do it. Thank you.
Mais en même temps, vous dites que pour augmenter vos revenus, la seule mesure qui est annoncée dans votre plateforme aujourd'hui, la seule nouvelle mesure, c'est on va augmenter la productivité dans la fonction publique, c'est ce que vous dites. Ça fait des années que les gouvernements promettent ça. Est-ce que c'est pas de la pensée magique?
Non, non, c'est pas la seule mesure parce il y en a de l'attrition naturelle de la fonction publique. Non, c'est assez grand ça. C'est assez grand. C'est la gestion de nos processus légal, mieux gestionner ça, des consultants à l'externe. On va fusionner quelques programmes qui ont le même, plusieurs programmes, pas quelques, plusieurs programmes qui ont des mêmes objectifs, mais il y en a plus. Il y a des possibilités énormes dans le budget fédéral. Et on va le gérer pour le Canada, gérer afin de mieux investir. On va le faire, ça c'est clair. Ouais.
Prochaine question, next question.
Yeah, sorry.
Hi, Mr. Carney. Shannon Proudfoot with the Globe and Mail.
Okay.
The idea of diversifying international trade and cutting back on interprovincial trade barriers is central to this platform. But that's something Canada's been talking about forever. It's sort of like that 10 pounds we always just mean to lose. So I understand the why here is driven by the U.S. trade threats. But what's the how? How is this actually going to happen this time, and is that realistic?
Okay, so a couple of things. Again, the core of this platform is investing here at home, and it's going to build out. Okay, just to be clear. The icing on the cake, and it's more than icing on the cake, and I guess we won't lose the 10 pounds if we have icing on the cake, but the icing and ice cream on the cake is exactly what you just said, Shannon, which is to have one Canadian economy and to diversify. So how are we going to change that? And the start of the answer has already started. We got an agreement, my first week as Prime Minister, to have one Canadian economy, and one of the ways to do that is to drop a series of qualification and other barriers that the various provinces have. Now, since then, Nova Scotia has made that more formal. Ontario, literally in the last 2-3 days, announced that they would do. This is all consistent with that agreement. Other provinces are coming in. And the federal government, my government, has committed that we will legislate by Canada Day the removal of all federal restrictions. So that's very tangible. And part of what, if I may, the media and folks at home can watch it, is to hold us all to account to this. Canadians want this. This is one of the things that's really impressed me across the country. Canadians want one Canadian economy. They don't understand why we don't have it, and the crisis shows us that that alone can give back. Last point, I'll try and be more quick, which is around international diversification. One of the things, again, in the first few weeks as Prime Minister, yes, I went to Europe. Yes, we've been talking to Europe. We are already striking a defense cooperation arrangement with Europe, part of which means, big part of it, which means investment here in Canada as part of that procurement. So that diversifies our security relationship, but it also diversifies our trade. So we are going to be laser focused on both of those and delivering on those.
My second question, the middle class tax cut, as you bill it, has a pretty hefty price tag for what is arguably a fairly marginal gain for individual families. I understand the political and, let's say, social, emotional impetus to do that in a time when people are feeling squeezed from multiple directions. But as you know, budgeting is about making choices and setting priorities. So why was that the best use of that large chunk of money?
Yeah, look, it's you know, a family of two, it's $825 a year. It's a material, you know, it's a material amount of money. That is, it's. You know, the change in grocery costs over the course of the last year would be around that amount of money. So it's a serious amount of money. And what we're looking to do with that is to immediately get more money in people's pockets for reasons of affordability while we're building up the economy. Because ultimately, how do you solve the affordability issue? We got to build millions of homes. We got to have more high-paying jobs. Yes, we need competition. Yes, we need to strip out unnecessary costs. But in the end, it's about that growth that most of this platform's delivering. But people need help now. So cutting the carbon tax, cutting the middle class tax cut delivers savings to them now, as do, and this is something the Conservatives either don't get, but they certainly refuse to talk about, is they ignore that childcare literally saves people $10,000 a year in this province. They ignore that dental care saves 8 million Canadians $800. They ignore that, and they would get rid of all that. And they think, So then all of that comes together because we are very focused on the impacts on Canadians, on people today, while we're building for tomorrow. Madame.
Prochaine question.
Oui.
Bonjour, Monsieur Carney, Hélène Moka de la presse canadienne. Dans votre plateforme, vous favorisez la mobilité de la main-d'œuvre entre les provinces, notamment pour les travailleurs de la santé. En ce qui concerne les médecins, comment éviter les problèmes avec le Québec et le Collège des médecins là-dessus?
Il faut respecter, en ce qui concerne la langue française et les aspects distincts du Québec, on va les respecter, ça c'est absolument clair. On a des discussions avec le gouvernement du Québec en ce qui concerne les réductions des barrières, et y compris moi, discussion entre moi et M. Legault. Alors, on va ajuster, mais en même temps protéger les aspects distincts de le système de santé, dans ce cas du Québec.
Quand on parle des médecins? La mobilité de
Oui, évidemment, mais ce n'est pas parfait, le libre-échange ici au Canada à la fin, mais c'est toujours il y a un équilibre avec le Québec. Ouais.
Et je crois comprendre que vous voulez augmenter aussi le nombre de places en faculté de médecine, c'est exact?
Oui, oui.
Et encore là, comment éviter des problèmes avec le Québec là-dessus?
On travaille dans une étroite collaboration avec le gouvernement du Québec sur cela.
Prochaine question.
Il faut travailler ensemble. Oui.
Prochaine question.
Ouais.
Morning.
Morning.
John Iveson from the National Post.
Welcome home.
Thank you. Industrial carbon pricing. The platform talks about improving that system,
Yeah.
Linking markets across the country, and making sure companies are able to withstand America's trade war better. Can you give some specifics how that would work?
Yeah. So the first thing is to create the opportunity. I mean, and look, again, there's a lot of realities in Canada. It's a cooperative country, a cooperative federalism. So we create the opportunity to opt into a system that is augmented, in terms of the credit system for industrial carbon, large emitters actually is the right term, and specifically to create the opportunity so that they are funding reductions for households, people's emissions. So people get a retrofit of their home, better insulation of their home, or better heating, or electric vehicle or other. That is saving carbon in the country. And you want to give a choice whether an industrial emitter is in effect paying for that or paying for something that it does itself. We will continue without question our very considerable and entirely right approach to provide generous investment tax credits. We have both the Minister of Industry and the Minister of Finance here who helped build this very generous approach to provide investments in clean solutions for those large emitters as well, because that's what's going to make our businesses more competitive over the medium term, including in those new markets that we have to access. I'll hand back. Sorry.
The revenue from foreign tariffs in this document today coming into Canada ends this year.
Yeah.
Do you think the trade war will end this year?
Yeah, it's a great, John, it's a very good question. I think a couple things. One, we don't want to rely on those tariff revenues. Canada's not America. So you might see other parties who assume that that's going to continue and that's going to be a source of revenue. That's a bad outcome for the country. It's another prudential thing that we're doing. So when I talk about the downside of, this is diversity in Canada, is right there. The downside of, the bank can't, like if we have a full Trump trade thing and it lasts, then we lose, 125 billion. We can give all of that back. But when we're giving it back, we're not assuming that we get those revenues. I just don't think, we don't think, to assume that those tariff revenues are in place is prudent at all. So we concentrate them today and we'll deal tomorrow. It underscores, though, if I can just go back, we're in a, let's be absolutely clear what we're talking. This is not a normal sort of fall update, budget lockup kind of thing. We are in the middle of the biggest crisis of our lifetimes. And this is a plan that meets that moment in a way that is very prudent with people's hard-earned tax dollars, but bold in terms of where this country can go. And I tell you, Canadians want to be bold. Please.
Next question to Mélanie, and then last question to David. Mel?
Bonjour, M. Carney, Mélanie Marquis de la presse. Je voudrais juste commencer avec une précision sur l'opération d'efficacité au sein de la fonction publique. Vous avez mentionné des programmes qui pourraient être fusionnés. Est-ce que vous avez des exemples? Mais ma vraie question, je vais économiser, je vais mettre ça en deux. Le Québec a été décoté récemment parce que les budgets étaient très dépensiers. Le vôtre l'est aussi, alors qu'on se dirige peut-être vers une récession. Est-ce que c'est un risque aussi pour le Canada d'être décoté? Puis est-ce que vous en avez tenu compte?
OK. Le premier, en ce qui concerne le premier exemple, on a plusieurs programmes qui essaient de donner des incentives de la recherche ou d'investissement à travers des petites, moyennes et des moyennes entreprises, par exemple. Et on peut les fusionner. On peut trouver les efficacités en faire ça, si on fait ça, et on va le faire. C'est un exemple. Il y en a plusieurs exemples comme cela. En ce qui concerne la notation de Canada, OK, nous sommes dans une situation. Si on ne fait rien, il est possible, on va être décoté. Il faut agir dans une crise. Dans notre plan, il y a un assainissement du budget opérationnel. Les budgets opérationnels vont être équilibrés dans 3 années. Et la dette par rapport au PIB réduit pendant le plan. Et ce qui est important, alors, ces chiffres comme ça sont vraiment importants pour l'agence de la notation, mais il faut avoir la croissance. Ce n'est pas pour l'agence de notation, c'est pour les Canadiens, pour les familles, mais il faut avoir la croissance afin de maintenir notre notation. Et avec ce plan, on va avoir de la croissance la plus forte du G7. Le Canada va être la plus forte économie du G7 dans quelques années. Et pendant cette période, les Américains vont affaiblir. Ça, c'est au sein d'être Canada fort.
Last question to the delegation now.
David Aiken, Global News. Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to talk about the defense spending commitments. And I want to reflect on some things you've been saying in your speeches, that we have to do impossible things, and we have to do them at a speed we've never seen before. Given the pace at which the UK, Germany, other NATO allies have increased defense spending, much quicker, much higher than us, given that NATO wants to see 3% defense spending, let me put it to you that your defense spending plan is neither impossible, nor is it moving at any particularly great speed, that it is not meeting the moment, and it is not very bold.
So a couple of things there. One, the world, as I've been saying, and you're right to quote, that the world is getting more divided and dangerous. We have many needs to secure. We start from a position of what do we need to do to secure Canada? So big focus on the Arctic, big focus on our southern border and being better there. Few other things in between. So you see a lot on icebreakers, you see a lot, I won't go through all the things. And there is a huge defense spend in this plan, a huge defense spend in this plan. We get to 2% quite quickly in this plan. That's on top of defense spending, which has doubled, by the way, over the course of the last several years. And if I recall, in fact, I'm sure it's right, under the old Conservative government, Mr. Poilievre was a member, defense spending was less than 1% of GDP. The weakest level. So it's been going up. But looking at the needs, both to secure Canada first, but also our international obligations, it is possible, David, that we will need to do more. It is possible we'll need to do more. The NATO summit at the end of June will be one of the determinants of that. Our participation, which I helped cement in the Coalition of the Willing with respect to Ukraine, is part of that. Crucially, what we're doing, and I better stop on this, is two things. We're diversifying how we spend that money. So we're partnered with Australia on the over-the-counter radar, or over-the-horizon radar. I wish it was over-the-counter; it would have been cheaper. Over-the-horizon radar in the Arctic, and this partnership we're developing with Europe, which has been a big focus of mine on so-called Rearm Europe. That matters because it diversifies us, but also in both cases, a huge amount of this spend will be right here in Canada. And we want to move away from the world where our defense spending has been 75% in the U.S., the country that is, effectively attacking us. So we're going to focus on results. What do we need? Work backwards in a way that has the maximum impact here for Canada, and then we'll arrive at a number. And that number, could go higher. I fully accept that, but we will do what's necessary to protect this country. Yeah.
We'll have time for one last very quick, very short local question.
Hi, Mr. Carney. Grant Guo from FM 1059. I just want to follow up on something you said during Thursday night's debate. When asked about the biggest security threat to Canada, you said China. A lot of Chinese Canadians are worried that that kind of statement might lead to prejudice or discrimination against the people based on their background. Can you explain what you mean by that? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your question. Let me say this, make the fundamental distinction between the enormous positive, I'm going to run out of time for all the adjectives I should have, contribution of Chinese Canadians to this country, to the fabric of this country, to the core of our culture, the core of our... from our culture to music to our values to our innovation and beyond. I mean, that's at the core. There is a fundamental distinction between that and the People's Republic of China and geopolitical risks, which is what I was talking about, geopolitical risks that we face. And this is Canada. We can distinguish between Canada and what happens outside of Canada. And the fact is that whether it's in our Arctic, whether it's throughout Asia, whether it's with respect to protection of Ukraine and Europe, given China's partnership with Russia, given a host of other issues, China is, as a country, a security threat to our country. And when you're in government, when you're in my position, you have to take these threats seriously and be transparent with Canadians. So two entirely different issues, and we will continue to do what's necessary to keep Canada strong.
Merci. Thank you. This puts an end to our press conference. Est-ce qu'il y a une conférence de presse?